The Belonger, a novel, written by Kathleen Mehuron, and narrated by Kathleen Hewitt. Chapter 28. The tropical sun could be a cruel taskmaster, even when it started dipping toward the horizon. Holly had left her backpack behind and had taken off in such a hurry that she'd forgotten to bring any drinking water. Within minutes, her legs felt heavy, but she pushed on because she had seen the look in Teresa's eyes. As coolly as the young woman had tried to handle the situation, Holly was sure she must be beside herself with worry. Holly had had a difficult labor with Byron, 34 excruciating hours. In the end, she'd been so exhausted that she'd fallen asleep between her contractions, which felt like a cruel joke when she jolted awake only moments later in horrible pain. They'd had to make a cut to get the baby out, and then call in a special surgeon to stitch her up again. It had been months before she could walk normally again. The idea of Teresa having her baby without a hospital to care for her made Holly shudder. The best they could do was to get her to the mansion, where she would be safe, and where they had water that could be boiled and used to sterilize. Sterilize what? She asked herself. All she really knew was that germs would die in high heat, but she actually knew very little about birthing a baby. The panic this realization made her feel helped propel her forward, and soon, running at full force, she saw the coral-pink roseate in the distance. Inside the roseate, Holly pulled her gun out of her waistband, put a not-very-cold pack on the knot on the back of her head, and took an aspirin. She did not linger for long, but she did drink an entire bottle of water before heading back. The last few days had been like a war zone. In war, you keep going because you have to. Holly had never known she was so strong. Byron had left his scooter out in the shed. It was flooded, but only with a foot of water. She backed the scooter out and started it with a roar. The roads are in rough shape, but I think I can pick my way along the shoulders until I reach the rise of the hill. Time dragged as she bumped along, getting drenched by the muddy water of the deep puddles she wasn't able to avoid. It felt like an eternity until she saw Joab's house. I did it, and there is Anthony anxiously waiting for me. I bet he never doubted I could do it. She wasn't surprised when he loaded Teresa on the bike and headed downhill toward the roseate without much discussion. He had boxed up some of Teresa's things, and he paused only long enough to ask Mateus and Holly to carry them home before zooming off. Holly surveyed the contents of the box. This won't do at all. She ran inside to gather up more of Teresa's clothes. When she came back out the front door, she could see Anthony and Teresa weren't making much headway. Anthony was trying to ease the bike over the large bumps and down into the unavoidable ruts. She imagined Teresa moaned as he did so, and Anthony silently cursed the rough landscape. Although she and Mateus couldn't quite catch up to them on foot, she was able to see them as they reached the house in the distance. Step by slowly rising step, Anthony helped Teresa until she reached the top of the long stairway. By the time Holly and Mateus arrived at Roseate, Anthony had installed Teresa in the cream-colored armchair in Holly's bedroom. Mateus ducked away to the kitchen in search of food to prepare for the group, while Holly dug around in her closet and found a waterproof mattress pad, a thick natural fiber second pad to put over it, a fresh set of sheets, and a stack of smaller quilted pads. Holly was grateful she was a pack rat. The previous owner of the inn had told her, "I won't lie to you, darling. My mother was sick for a long time and even died in this room. Thought this stuff might come in handy one day, but you do what you want. You know how it is out on Grand Turk. We save everything for a rainy day." And look what had happened. They now had what they needed to get through this crisis. The baby's birth will bring everything around full circle from losing the old woman in this room. This will be good karma, good juju. There will be joy here from this day forward, instead of sorrow. Once the bed was made, Anthony told Teresa, "Get as comfortable as you can. I'm going to start hauling water from the cistern up to the bathtub," he said to Holly. "She'll want to be clean before she lies down. It must be 90 degrees outside today. The water will be warm." "When did anyone last clean the tub?" Holly asked. He gave her a sheepish look. "I didn't even think of that." "There's a stack of white buckets under the house," Holly said briskly. "Bring me a full bucket and I'll use it for scrubbing. I'll come down and help you haul water as soon as I'm done." She made short work of cleaning the tub, and soon she was filling the buckets and bringing them up to the bathroom alongside Anthony. He nearly sprinted the stairs as Holly followed behind more slowly. Every once in a while, she put the bucket she was carrying down and rested before starting again. She called to Anthony, "You're doing twice the work I am." "You're still a help. Take your time," he said with a wink. Holly had already noticed how in sync she and Anthony were when an important job needed to be done. Preparing for Teresa's labor, she found their natural teamwork was impossible to mistake. When the bath was ready, Anthony took Holly's hand and walked her over to the chair where Teresa was reclined. His touch was warm and tender, and, though she felt silly about it, her heart fluttered. Geez, this is no time for mushy stuff. I'm like a teenager around him lately. "Teresa, I want you to know I've attended a baby's birth before," Anthony said. The look on Teresa's face was beyond shocked. He held up the palm of his hand as if to stop any questions she may be formulating. "Chalk it up to a long and, shall we just say, richly lived life." He gestured toward Holly. "Holly's a mother too. None of what is about to happen is new to us. You will start off the labor with your usual modesty, but as time passes and the time to push grows nearer, you will forget all about that. Being embarrassed is counterproductive, so please try very hard to put your faith in us. I think we can all agree that our goal in the end is a healthy baby." Holly wasn't sure if she should share her most humiliating moment of childbirth with them, but Anthony's eyes were pleading with her to agree with him. She pushed her lips together and stared at the ground. "Yes. She felt her face burning red, but she started to laugh, hoping to lighten the moment. "I pushed so hard when Byron was born that, well, I pushed something out besides my son." Holly screwed up her face. "If you know what I mean." Teresa squealed like a young girl. "I would be humiliated." Holly laughed hard. "I know, it sounds awful, but at the time I didn't care. You get that engrossed, believe me." Teresa's face began to contort with pain. The twitching of her cheeks seemed beyond her control. After her contraction reached its peak, she told Holly softly, "I've heard that can happen." Her tone was so sweet, Holly shrugged comically. "Like the old saying goes, accidents will happen." She held on to Teresa's hand as she shifted around and tried to get comfortable. Holly felt sorry that the linens, like everything else inside the house, were still clammy, but she was at least confident they were relatively clean. They heard banging coming from the kitchen. "That would be Mateus," Anthony said. "We can call him when we need something. Holly and I will stay right here with you." "Ready for a bath?" Holly asked. Teresa nodded tentatively. Together, Anthony and Holly helped her up, and Holly brought her into the bathroom. When she was pretty sure the labor pains had calmed down for the time being, and Teresa was able to be on her own for a few minutes, she went back in the bedroom and rifled through the clothes she'd brought from Teresa's house. She found just what she was looking for. Cotton nightgown in hand, she knocked on the bathroom door. "Yes?" Teresa called out. Holly cracked the door, slid the nightgown inside, and quietly shut the door. About 10 minutes later, Teresa emerged, appearing incandescent. "I feel so much more refreshed, though this leg is aching. Can I take some Advil, do you think?" She barely made it to the bed before she groaned again and grabbed her belly. Anthony appeared immediately, and he and Holly each took one of her elbows and helped her to lie down. Holly was desperately trying to remember what the nurses had done to help her during her labor with Byron. "Maybe we should walk around for a while," she suggested. "They made me do that when Byron was coming." The memory of his birth made Holly's throat constrict. It didn't seem that long ago that she'd held him as an infant in her arms. Where is he now? We all agreed to assume that no news is good news, but... Teresa's eyes rolled back in her head as another contraction took hold. "I think it's too late for walking." Holly was surprised another contraction had come on so quickly. "When did your pains begin?" She grabbed Holly's hand hard and tried hard to speak. "Last night. Oh, Lord." There was silence, but the grimacing expression on her face spoke volumes. "About dinner time." Dinner time? Holly spun around to Anthony, though her knees were trembling. "Can you find out what time it is now, please?" Chapter 29. Though Holly was focused on Teresa, she couldn't help but hear the door open and close. She was sure Anthony had gone to the living room to check the old grandfather clock. When he came back, his gaze shot to Holly, then Teresa, and back again. He wiped his face with one hand and pushed his hair up out of his eyes. A sigh escaped him. "We all know it often takes time for a first child to come, but it's already been over 25 hours. Holly was shocked. She stammered, But, Teresa, you've hardly made a sound." A careful examination of the prone woman was revealing. Her limbs were stiff, and the muscles in her face were jumping. "I didn't want to be a bother," she whispered. "Actually, my back hurts so badly I could cry." At that, she reached up and wiped tears from her eyes. "Do you want to try some breathing exercises?" Anthony asked. "I took Lamar's classes when I was younger." Holly cocked her head to one side. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Teresa doing exactly the same thing. She thought they must make a funny sight. "Really?" she asked, toying with him. He didn't take her bait, but he did have a self-satisfied smile on his face. "This is neither the time nor the place to tell that story. Maybe when this is over and mother and child are well and happy, I can describe what happened." Holly squinted at him. "At least tell me this. I thought you'd never been married. You make quite a joke out of it, as I recall." No, I never have. I was a birth coach. Nothing more. I've told you this already. Teresa, can I try something for your back pain?" He motioned for her to sit up, and he eased himself onto the bed so he was sitting behind her. Holly saw he was careful not to put any pressure on her injured leg. He had one of his feet on the floor to keep his balance. He began to massage Teresa's lower back, which immediately brought out an of pleasure from her. "Holly, can you please see if there's any ice left in the freezers or the coolers? Break it down into chips if you can, and bring it for Teresa. She'll have to focus on her deep breathing soon." Right, Holly said, still standing in the same place. "The breathing will no doubt make her thirsty," Anthony explained. "But we can't have her gulping water, that won't do. It will be much better to have bits of ice to suck on." Teresa let out a yelp of pain and held her breath to the point that she turned red in the face. Anthony quietly reminded her to inhale deeply and exhale slowly. "And try your best to relax, dear." It was all so intimate, so miraculous, so beautiful. Holly ran her hands down her sides. Am I intruding? Do I even belong here? Should I give them some time alone? She started to leave the room, but Anthony stopped her with a jerk of his head. She stepped toward him and lowered her ear near his mouth to listen. "Can you see if Mateus has made us any food? See if you can bring in a plate for each of us." "For you and Teresa," she muttered, feeling dismissed. Anthony chuckled. "No, Teresa can't eat right now. The food is for you and me. We've got to keep up our strength, too. Do find something light for Teresa, maybe just bring in some saltines. We don't want her to get nauseous." Reassured that she was actually needed, Holly took off for the kitchen wearing a smile. When Holly slipped back into the room, ice and crackers in hand, she whispered to Anthony, "Mateus says dinner will take a while." He nodded to her. While he continued his massage, he and Teresa talked quietly. The pains were coming closer and closer together now. "We couldn't afford to fly over to Provo week after week to attend childbirth classes," she said. "My doctor on Grand Turk gave me 2 books and a video to watch that showed the techniques for each stage of labor." "Will you allow me to coach your breathing?" Anthony asked. "If Joab can't be here, you are the perfect substitute," she said regally. "And I thank you for doing it." He was visibly moved by her response. A powerful contraction hit Teresa, and she went rigid. "Slowly take the air in. 8, 9, 10, Anthony said softly. "Now release. Slowly, slowly. I am glowing with happiness for Joab. His woman is a goddess." "Oh, sure," Teresa chuckled between gulps. "I'm sure I look a fright." "You are gorgeous," Anthony told her, and he was right. An idea struck Holly. She found her purse and fumbled around for her phone. "What are you doing?" Anthony asked. "I want to take some video for Joab. I still have some charge left." Anthony's expression softened. "That's incredibly thoughtful." To an outsider looking in, with Anthony's body wrapped around Teresa's, it might seem like they were lovers. What a testament to the strength of their friendship. Anthony must be so relieved to have found Teresa alive and relatively unharmed. I think I even heard him say a heartfelt prayer of thanks on their behalf when we first saw her. As she filmed them, Anthony spoke to the camera. "Joab, my friend, you mean the world to me. You've been a good friend for many years. It may look like I'm moving in on your lady, but in fact I'm applying counterpressure to Teresa's back. You can thank me later." Holly hit the red button to save the life of the battery for another shot later on. Anthony squeezed his eyes together and sat back, looking exhausted. "Are you okay?" Holly asked him. He didn't open his lids, but he said softly, "With my 6th sense, I am willing a message to Joab across the 230 ocean miles to the Dominican Republic. He must be beside himself that he can't come home. In my mind, I'm saying, I've got your darlings, buddy. Until we see you again, I will do everything I can for them." He opened his eyes and gazed up at Holly. "God save us all." Holly gave him a half-hearted smile and patted him on the shoulder. He shook out his hands and stretched them. "You need a break," Holly told him in no uncertain terms. "You're right. If I stay here too long, I might seize up." Teresa reached back and squeezed one of his arms. "Of course. I will be fine." With that, he carefully eased his buttocks back toward the foot he already had on the floor. Holly watched as he struggled to slide his other leg out from behind Teresa and off the bed. She jumped to help him, but it was still an awkward maneuver. "I am ancient," he groaned, grabbing at the back of his elevated calf. "Muscle cramp. Careful, Teresa. I don't want to kick you." Once Holly got him on his feet, she said, "Stand on it. No, put your foot flat on the ground and let the cramp settle down. Bend your knees some." Anthony let out an exaggerated whine. "You are incredibly bossy." They all burst out laughing, even Teresa, who was having a momentary break from her labor pains. Holly stroked Anthony's back as he grunted and did as she said. As soon as he seemed more comfortable, she said, "I'm going to check on dinner. I'm suddenly starving." Chapter 30. Holly was at the kitchen counter when Anthony came in. "Needed a short break," he said. Holly nodded. "Mateus says it will be ready soon." Mateus sat at the table with a chopping board in front of him. With his usual smile, he said, "You two take a few minutes. I'll leave this on simmer and go sit with her a while." Holly was happy for the respite. Anthony went in the pantry and Holly could hear rustling sounds. "I'm just collecting a few things," he called to her. She assumed he would return with some rum, so she got 2 glasses down from a cabinet. She also nabbed a small block of cheese from the cooler she'd filled earlier with refrigerator staples. She was sure he noticed the mess in the pantry from the boys who had broken in, but when he came out with an armful of items, he pointed toward the front of the house without a word about it. They sat down on the decking of the front porch and let their legs and bare feet dangle off the side like children. She made figure-8 designs in the air with her feet. Anthony said quietly, "Mateus told me there was a scuffle in the kitchen." "How did he—" "He's an incredibly observant man. Do you want to tell me what happened?" She ignored the question. Since it happened, she'd tried not to think about it. She stretched her feet out in front of her and announced, "After all we've been through, my pedicure still looks fantastic." When he put his arms around her, she jolted a bit and studied his face. "I get it. You're not ready to talk about it." He patted her back. She shrugged. "I guess you should know the basics, in case the police or the army show up asking questions." "I suppose I should." When I got back to the house looking for towels for Mrs. James, there were 3 young men in the kitchen pantry. They'd already had a lot of rum. One of the kids, Charles, was clearly drunk. He pushed me. Hard. "Charles? I think I know him." He didn't look happy. She reached up to the knot on the back of her head and winced. Anthony reached out too, for her hand. He took it in his and waited quietly. The other boys didn't do anything wrong besides trespassing. In fact, Robert tried to stop him. But it all happened so fast. Charles had me pinned up on the counter. Based on the things he said, I knew what he planned on doing. I stopped him.
"How did you do that?"
Stabbed him in the neck. With a short blade, though. I didn't want to kill him. Just make him stop before it got out of hand.
"My lord."
He pulled her closer. Then I got lucky. Because Robert was holding him back, I could reach my pistol. I suppose if someone were to be critical about it, I held them all at gunpoint. But just long enough to get him fixed up with peroxide and a clean cloth for pressure. I hope they don't come back. He snorted out a bitter laugh.
"Oh, I don't think they will be back. You should prepare yourself to be something of a legend after this, though. I don't think you need to worry about anyone breaking into your house again. But you may not get many dinner invitations on this island."
I didn't have time to think. I just did it. He squeezed her thigh.
"Of course you did, my poor girl. All that's happened here will take time to come to terms with."
Holly didn't answer. With her eyes shut, she lifted her face to the balmy breeze. It felt like a loving touch. Anthony laid a plate between them. It was filled with crackers, a variety of olives, and Holly's cheese. Ever so smoothly, he uncorked the rum and poured Holly 2 fingers' worth. She giggled when he, with a dramatic flourish, doubled that amount in his own. "Don't be a cheapskate." Holly took the bottle away from him and put another splash in hers. When she took a sip, she again closed her eyes. The alcohol burned as it went down, but it had a delicious, toasted caramel finish. Anthony lit up a cigarette and offered the pack to her. Instead of taking a new one for herself, she reached over and took Anthony's cigarette from his fingers. Pressing it between her lips, she inhaled a deep drag from it, and then let it out. She groaned with happiness. "I haven't had a cigarette in years." Anthony chortled. "Every once in a while won't kill you." "Well, don't tell Montez. He was after me to give it up." Anthony grimaced. "Montez? What's he got to do with this?" There was a clear note of jealousy in his tone. She was honestly surprised. She handed the cigarette back to him, and he took a drag.
He scolded me more than once. You are the mother of my child. You need to stay healthy. He was right. Holly shrugged. You have to admit, smoking is never a good idea. Yet after he took a drag, she reached for it again and took another hit, and she enjoyed it tremendously. A noted harumph escaped Anthony. He sure as hell is busy leading his own life. I don't see why he gets to have a say in yours. As hard as this day has been, let's face it, this night will be a long one. We deserve a little pleasure. The way he said pleasure, accentuated by the manner in which he locked eyes with her, sent a rushing sensation coursing through her stomach. Once again, she was overpowered by her attraction to him, and she found it was a draw that seemed to have a mind of its own. When she handed the cigarette back, he leaned in and kissed her playfully on the lips 3 times. He must have decided that he liked it, for he took her face in his hands tenderly, being careful with his cigarette, and kissed her again, this time deeply. Inside of Holly, something powerful burst open. She discovered she didn't look forward to the feeling ending. He pulled away a bit, bringing them nose to nose. They traded stares. You, my darling, are a beauty. And you have a heart as big as the great outdoors. Holly sat back and blew a smoke ring at him. Anthony guffawed. That's my only comment on the matter, she said. You see, that's my girl. He put his arm around her while he continued to laugh into her hair. She informed him coolly, I'm too old to be anybody's girl, sir. But she smiled when she said it. Where is all this headed? Are we a thing now? Without letting go, he sat up straight and sipped his drink. It was a bit of a reach with the plate between them, so he picked it up and moved it to Holly's other side. Slide over here. Snuggle up. She wiggled over and leaned into him. You know, he said, one thing that surprised me about you. I always thought beautiful girls couldn't cook. She laughed out loud. Where did you hear that? I suppose I thought they didn't have to work hard in general. But you, my sweet, you are a trooper. If I was in a tough spot and Matthias was unavailable, you would definitely be my second choice. She convulsed with laughter. Oh, thanks. I've always wanted to be second fiddle. Chortling, she laid her head against his shoulder. Overcome with silliness, having lost any pretense of control, they both snorted and heaved and wiped at the tears that were leaking from their eyes. Truth be told, Holly was giddy from fatigue and the dehydration following a day's labor in the hot sun, not to mention the energy required to stab someone, in the neck no less. Much to her bewilderment, her laughter turned to sobbing in a heartbeat. Anthony squeezed her gently. Another calm sip of his rum was rapidly followed by an inhalation off his cigarette. He blew the smoke forward and stared straight ahead. I wondered how long it would take for you to start worrying about Byron. I'm not going to try to placate you by saying he's fine. We have no idea where he is at this point. As close as you two are, it must add to an already terrible day. It's more frightening than a drunken Charles, and that was pretty bad. Anthony's face went dark. You've no need to worry yourself about them anymore. We have a system here. It will be dealt with. Holly gulped. It was only the one kid who'd meant her harm. She hoped the others didn't get in too much trouble. But the thought was fleeting. She had a one-track mind at the moment. My fear about Byron comes and goes, but right now my stomach is twisted into knots. I guess because we are having a quiet moment, I'm going wild with the horrible possibilities. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your understanding. We do understand each other, don't we? You know what I mean. You see what we can do together. I don't know your parents, but they must be so proud of you. He gave her a gentle kiss on her forehead. He gave the cigarette back to her, which she contentedly inhaled with her head still on his shoulder.
A few moments later, she said huskily, "I hope you won't be shocked when I tell you this. My parents hardly know me. Or knew me. My mother is dead." Her voice broke when she added, "And I doubt I'll ever see my father again." He caressed her face.
"That is their loss, my love, as you have turned out to be a formidable woman. Formidable. If it means anything at all, I, for one, am proud to know you."
A few precious moments passed where she felt suspended, alone with Anthony in a moment of complete tranquility. Their breathing synchronized as they stared together up into the night sky. When a shooting star exploded into a long arc, they both let out a sigh. A lavender cloud was swept across the very faint glow of the horizon. It was like a bubble of splendor had surrounded them, one which burst wide open the second Matthias popped his head out the front door and called out, "A little help in here, please?" Holly slowly stood and brushed herself off. She downed her rum, and Anthony did the same. He lowered his chin and locked eyes with her.
"I love a woman who can handle her liquor," he said appreciatively.
Like the hellion she could sometimes be, she smiled boldly. "You love a woman under any circumstances." He cracked up again.
True enough. Until you came along, Holly dear. Until now."
Holly took Anthony's hand in hers. It didn't even occur to her that he might be exaggerating his feelings for her. What he said rang true. For the last few days, his adoration had radiated from him constantly, washed over her, and made her feel warm and safe. Their time together was, perhaps, the safest place she'd ever known, today's fracas in the kitchen notwithstanding. With Anthony, it never occurred to her to be anything but herself. He stubbed out his cigarette on the bottom of his shoe, and Holly picked up the plate from the porch deck. He was behind her as she started back into the house, but he stopped her and wrapped his arms around her one more time. As he nuzzled her neck from behind, he ran his lips up the length of it, making her quiver from head to toe.
"I dig your ass. It's perfect."
Holly's eyes flew open.
"Dig?"
she said as she whirled around to confront him. "If you tell me that in yet another previous phase of your life you were a jazz musician, I think I'll lose my mind." He raised both of his hands up and out.
"What can I say?"
She pounded on his chest with her index finger, demanding to know the story. "What instrument do you play?"
"My darling, in the end I'm really such a cliché. Can't you guess?"
"The bad boy drummer, I see."
"Precisely."
He seemed happy with her for figuring it out so quickly. She shook her head and muttered a few curses. By contrast, her life seemed dull as dirt. I'm going to make him tell me all his stories, including about those babies he helped deliver.